Welcome to Little Rockers Radio. I'm Craig Harper. I'm now about to chat with Leanne Elliston, an accredited practicing dietitian from Nutrition Australia. Here's Leanne's bio. 13 years of experience as a dietitian with main interest in early childhood nutrition, has worked in both community and clinical settings, including 5 years at Canberra Hospital. This is very long, Leanne, specialising in allergies and food intolerances. She's now the Program Manager and Nutritionist at Nutrition Australia, ACT, and continues to deliver early childhood services in the community, mostly child care, staff training, childcare menu assessments and parenting education workshops. Leanne's also a mum herself with 2 kids, 8 and 5, so she knows only too well all the issues around parenting. Hi, Leanne.
Hello, Craig.
Oh, my goodness. I maybe should have prepped myself for that and warmed up a little bit and done some tongue aerobics or something, but thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Now, you don't know this, but I'm going to tell you, I was a morbidly obese kid. Where were you when I was fat and young?
Oh, well, I'm taking that you're not morbidly obese now.
Well, I'm okay now. I'm still not that attractive, but I'm not morbidly obese. But when I was 14 years old, I was 90 kilos.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and did you grow into that weight, Craig?
No, well, I ate my way into that weight, and then I started exercising and doing a few things, but I certainly could have done with you in my corner at about that stage. But where are we at in Australia? Because every time I turn on the telly, every time I open the paper, I get depressed with the stats because apparently we're going to be 100% obese in about 3 weeks.
Oh, look, it is. Look, it's not that bad.
4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Look, it is bad. We have to say it is bad. It's not good. I mean, at the moment, the stats are 1 in 4 children are either overweight or obese in Australia. And we've got 60% of adults either overweight or obese in Australia.
It's massive, isn't it?
At this stage, we believe that the rate of obesity and overweight in children has plateaued, but it's still not good. It's still too high. So we need to try and work on bringing that down.
Now, obviously, your lane, your field of expertise is the food stuff. I'm an exercise scientist by qualification now, a post-fat kid stage. But what we know about obesity and being overweight in general is that it's multidimensional. It's not just about food. It's not just about exercise. It's not just about, mum and dad and school and lifestyle. And it's about a multitude of things. But let's focus just on the food for a moment. What if you had to analyse or speak broadly, what are like the top 5 issues that we need to consider?
Okay.
Around food, of course.
Craig, yeah, all right. Putting me on the spot, but that's
yeah, no
good.
pressure.
Look, top 5, the main issue is when we talk about food and its relationship with overweight and obesity, at the end of the day, there's just too much energy, too many kilojoules in food.
Yeah.
And where's all that high energy coming from that wasn't around earlier? I mean, cream and ice cream and lollies have been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But perhaps it's the availability of it. It's so much more available now.
Yeah.
The promotion and advertising of those foods.
Yeah.
It's in children's faces regularly, as much as some control is starting to occur, but it's not mandatory. It's still voluntary as to how much control industry will follow when it comes to advertising to children. But there's lots of subliminal messages occurring as well. There's high kilojoule foods, which are less healthy. There's not much nutrition in a lot of those high kilojoule foods. They're the foods that we call the discretionary food choices. And recent studies have found that children consume up to 40% of their daily kilojoule intake from those foods alone. And those foods don't give any nutrition. They give you lots of fat and sugar and salt, but no vitamins.
Yeah, I call those edible products. They're not so much food. They're just things they're products that you can eat.
Yes, and often, look, let's face it, they're tasty.
Yeah.
Sugar and fat and salt are the things that make foods tasty. Yeah. And children that grow up with those foods in their diet from an early age get used to eating those foods, and they have a tendency to crave those foods if they have more of them in their early years. So that's what it really comes down to, Craig. It's simply too much kilojoules by choosing the wrong sorts of foods every day.
You must almost die 1,000 deaths when you walk down the cereal aisle of the supermarket and you look at the biggest selling cereals, which I think clinically we could describe as crap. I said that, not you. Rubbish, nutritional rubbish. I think 5 or 6 of the top 10 selling cereals are up around 30% sugar.
That's right. And I guess cereals are a little bit of a standalone one here because cereals there's a bit of a halo effect that occurs with cereals insofar as many of those cereals have nutrients added to them, so they're fortified. Yeah. So they might have some extra folate, they might have some extra B vitamins, they might have iron added to them. Yeah. So a lot of those foods are incredibly processed. They do have a lot of sugar added to them, but there are some vitamins which gives them that halo effect. We are providing some nutrition for your children. But there's always a healthier option. Usually the healthier option is the one that's less processed.
I reckon the more ingredients, the worse it is for you.
Yes, more ingredients, all sorts of additives and flavours and preservatives, and at the end of the day, how much of that original, what that food originally came from is actually still intact. And so I like to give the example of good old boiled oats or porridge.
That's what I eat every morning. You're singing,
good on you.
You're singing from... Do you know, this is how exciting I am. This is what I have my breakfast. Now, I know I'm not a child, but I'm childish, so tell me if I'm going okay. I have unprocessed bran, I have rolled oats, I have a bit of milk and a banana. Am I passing?
Oh, absolutely, with flying colours.
Oh, thank you. All right, now, I've got some questions from Little Rockers Radio listeners for you. We need about 30 to 60 seconds on each. No pressure, be amazing. All right, question one. Question one, Leanne. What is the portion size for kids?
Okay, it's never an easy question. Sounds like an easy question, but let me tell you, Craig, a portion size, when we look at the Australian Dietary Guidelines, which were revised and put out a year ago, according to the Dietary Guidelines, a portion is a portion no matter how old you are, or a serve size.
Really?
Okay, absolutely. So a standard serve size is the same no matter what age you are, but how many serves you have will be dependent on your age, okay? So, for instance, a piece of fruit, a medium piece of fruit, be that an apple or banana, or if it's two little fruits like apricots, then 2 of those would be a serve, or 1 medium piece of fruit would be a serve. So that's a serve for a child, and it's a serve for an adult. But, of course, a child aged 2 to 3 only needs 1 serve of fruit a day, whereas an adult requires 2 serves a day. So how you portion that up to your children is up to you and up to your child, because we can only provide them with the food. It's up to them to eat it. So if we only give them a quarter of a serve in the morning, that's fine. That might be a portion that suits your child. But make sure you try and give them 4 quarters of a serve over the day so that they get their whole serve, which is their recommendation.
Listen, I tell you what, you mothers are very sneaky the way that you do this to us kids. All right, question 2. Question 2. When can we expect our kids to grow out of their fussy eating behaviours and start to try more food?
Again, that depends on the parents and how, I've come across adults who still have fussy eating behaviours. They never grew out of it because the parents would feed their fussy eating behaviour. Like, oh, you don't like that, I'll give you this instead. Oh, I'm really worried you're not going to eat. How about we go out for dinner instead? I'll get you your favourite takeaway. So the sooner that parents can just sort of ignore that fussy behaviour, continue to provide healthy meals that the rest of the family eats, then the child will eventually, if they're a healthy child, they will eventually start to accept those foods. And remember to try new foods, they're always a challenge, new foods. It can take up to 15 times for that child to accept that food and enjoy it.
Force feeding, it sounds like. You're listening to Little Rockers Radio. That sounds like it. Little Rockers Radio, we're chatting with Leanne Elliston, who's advocating force feeding your kids. Now, no, you're not. Relax. It's all right. Now, here's my maybe almost last question. I have an issue with, I have many issues, but I have an issue with RDIs, right? Recommended daily intakes. Here's my thing, right? We go, he's this old, he's 8, therefore he needs, this many calories. Well, here's my question, dietitian lady. What if my 8-year-old is 40 kilos and he sits on his computer all day and hardly moves, surely he doesn't need the same calorie intake as his friend who weighs 60 kilos and is out riding his bike and building sandcastles and cubby houses all day.
Exactly.
So is there not, do we not account for individuality?
We do. And we tend not to talk RDIs anymore. That's a bit of an old term.
Oh, well, I'm old.
We could talk adequate intake. All right.
Adequate intake. I'm jotting that down.
Yes, and that's to suit individuals' requirements.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. An 8-year-old boy sitting down watching TV, not really sporty at all.
Yeah.
Certainly has the same growth and development requirements as a sporty person, but not as much kilojoule requirements because they're not burning as much. So, of course, they're not going to need as many kilojoules. But we shouldn't have to be counting kilojoules either. It's not about counting. It's about so that hungry child who is, in fact, very active will have a higher metabolism and they will have a large appetite. The child who is not as active will not have a large appetite, and often they may be eating not to suit their appetite. It may be because they're bored or because they associate TV with eating or playing games with eating. And what are the foods that they are eating as well?
Now, is it normal for kids to go through periods where they eat a whole lot more than at other stages? Because it seems that some kids, some days they hardly eat anything. Nah. Yeah. The next day they're eating everything that's, not nailed down.
Yeah, and it's not just in association with puberty. We all go through with growth spurts throughout our lives. And so from as soon as you're born, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, there's common age ranges where children will go through a growth spurt and their appetite will increase. And then there's common times where they're just sort of at a bit of a lull, not growing up much, and then they'll have a lower appetite. And that can explain why some kids just don't feel like eating. They're just not hungry or they just don't have the appetite for it. And other days they could eat half the household.
They could, as I did, which explained me being 90 kilos at 14. But enough about my issues. Here's my last question. Now, probably the field that you work in is almost the most... what's the word, debated and analysed, and it's forever evolving, and just turn on telly every night, there's some new amazing nutritional breakthrough revelation research, I'm a dad and I've got 3 kids and they're all aged between 2 and 12. Where do I find quality information, Leanne, not conflicting, confusing psychobabble?
Yes, there's a lot of garbage out there. Look, the best place to go is usually those that are endorsed by recognised organisations. So Nutrition Australia is one example.
Well, I've heard of them. Apparently, they're very good. Yeah.
Yes, they're great. And look, we use a lot of our information from the National Health and Medical Research Council. Yeah. And a really good place to go is the Eat for Health website, and that's where you can get a lot on dietary guidelines for children, and dietary guidelines for adults, and what is a serve and how much should I be having every day, that sort of thing. So I recommend that. There's also places like seeing an actual dietitian. Yes. Or a nutritionist, or an accredited nutritionist, and you can find out about them through the Dietitians Association of Australia website. If you need that specialist advice, so knowing the right person to go to, I think, is really important, who is accredited. And also, of course, as I mentioned, some of those other well-recognised organisations like Heart Foundation, Cancer Council often have some good nutrition information. And I do like Better Health Channel in Victoria, which is great as well.
Oh, you speak much wisdom and sense. Now, we'll put links, well, I won't, but somebody who's smarter than me will put links to all of those organisations that you mentioned on Little Rockers Radio website. Leanne, you've been awesome. Could we chat again one day, maybe?
Love to, Craig.
You've been very, very good. We love your insight, your wisdom, and taking some time out of your day to join us on Little Rockers Radio. Really appreciate it, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, you too, and thanks for having me.
Thanks for being had. See you, Leanne. Take care.
Bye-bye.
That was Leanne Elliston from Nutrition Australia. For more info on today's conversation, just head to Little Rockers Radio website and Facebook pages. Visit littlerockersradio.com.au. I'm Craig Harper.